So houses are always a way to experiment. So I thought, because if it goes wrong, it's going wrong on a small scale. So it's still bad, but doing a big scale project and have it go wrong is a much bigger problem, a much bigger challenge. So every project is kind of an evolutionary step, I would think. I think the first one that we got out of the gate and built was this house we did in Kerrisdale. It was called the Floating House, and it was for an Asian client, but it was kind of an early opportunity to experiment between kind of what does it mean to do kind of cross-cultural building where influences are coming from different places around the world, and doing that in the kind of Vancouver context with the layering of all of the kind of West Coast, modern architecture that I had been exposed to. It's probably the first one where I kind of took a lot of the kind of Asian principles of design a little bit further, at least for me, and into a kind of even more contemporary context. And we actually ended up building it ourselves as well. I had a construction company. That was probably the first project. So houses are always a way to experiment. So I thought, because if it goes wrong, it's going wrong on a small scale. So it's still bad, but doing a big scale project and have it go wrong is a much bigger problem, a much bigger challenge. So the building really had a lot of large sliding glass doors.
Yeah.
Almost a kind of take on what we were talking about in terms of passive design. Rather than just isolating the interior from the exterior, it was very much about opening the building to the garden and having large sections of the building being able to open up with big sliding doors, all custom made. Some of them were probably 9 or 10 feet high by 12 feet wide, like big sheets of doors, and they would all stack, and this house would just completely open onto a kind of a water feature and then a garden. That was really the first kind of way of trying to experiment with all the rules and regulations are moving towards isolation, separating the exterior from interior. We were going the other way, whereas opening everything, bringing the garden in. It's a very, almost like Japanese, so much about this visual connection to the interior. And it wasn't a very, very large house by contemporary standards, but it felt large because the garden around the house was always a part of the interior experience. So what we did was we surrounded the house on two sides with a water feature, which kind of reflected the light and brought some of that feeling of the garden right up to the edge of the house. And so when you're sitting inside, you get this kind of reflected light and a kind of view of this enclosed garden space. So that was the kind of first experimentation, and then some of the things we learned from that house found their way into a larger project which we did on 41st in Willow called Aperture. So if you look at the wood, which was a kind of a mahogany that we ended up using that wood because it was very resistant to water, and we were worried about Vancouver and rain, and it's a kind of wood that you use on ships. Be able to hold up to the beating that this climate would give you. But that was the first time we had used this particular wood. That wood found its way into a glazing panel system which we developed for Aperture. And to me, the combination of the wood with lighter surfaces, because in Vancouver, as we mentioned early on, getting light into buildings often is a struggle. It's cloudy, it's dark, you gotta get light. I mean, we're starved for light up here. So to me, the house had this very white kind of concrete and light interior, plus the combination of the wood, because I feel like 6 months of the year can be cold, it's damp, it's rainy. Having a warm material actually almost help visually. It's like you feel warmer. Absolutely. When you have that material there. And so with Aperture, we kind of took the similar approach with the material palette of using very light colors to bounce light around, get light inside, and then using the wood to create a sense of warmth so that the buildings feel more accessible, more homey. I'm trying to work with the climate, work with the conditions that are here, introduce materials that make you feel more comfortable. As much as I love the building we're in right now, which is the waterfall building, it's basically concrete and drywall. I'm okay with it because I'm an architect, but and I love the building. Arthur did this building years ago, but we need to be sensitive to the climate, and in the winter, it is rainy, it is cold. Having some warmth just from the materiality, I think helps with the livability.
It was such a pleasure to speak with Arno Matis from Arno Matis Architects. Thanks for watching AL13 Showcase, featuring architects in your city doing their best work to make your city a better livable place. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give us a like, tell us what you liked about it in the comments, and for more weekly content, make sure to hit subscribe.